Okay, we're recording.
Hi, Georgie.
Hi. Okay, I'm starting. Today's date is December 16th, 2024. My name is George Traub. I'm in seventh grade at Temple Shalom of Norwalk, Connecticut. I will be interviewing my grandma, whose name is
Marcy Traub, Grandma Marcy Traub.
hmm, about her life and legacy. Um, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Let's start with you telling me your full name.
My name is Marcy Traub. I was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1946.
hmm Who were you named after, if you know?
I was named after my paternal grandfather. That was my father's father, whose name was Morris. And my Jewish name, my Hebrew name, is Merila. But actually, that's my real Hebrew name. But my father, because I was named after his father, whose name was Morris, but whose Hebrew name was Moshe, my father used to call me Moish for Moshe, even though it was a man's name, but it was like a fun name. It was a nickname that he gave me. It was my Hebrew nickname.
hmm Yeah. Oh, that was the next question if you had a Hebrew name. Okay. In class, I've been learning about the immigration of Jews to the United States and other places. Do you know where your parents, grandparents, or great grandparents immigrated from?
Yes. My my parents were born in the United States. My mother's parents, both of them, were born in Russia. And they came to the United States in the early 1900s during the pogroms when they escaped um, a lot of bad things that were happening to Jews, but long before the war, before World War II, before Hitler. And my father's parents came from the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, which was not split up at the time. It was both Austria and Hungary together. It actually, once it split, they were probably from the part that became Austria. I'm not
Mhm.
sure about that.
Got it. Do you know anything about Jewish life there in Russia or Austria?
Jewish what?
Life there.
It was hard. It was hard. My father's my mother's father, well, this is interesting. Both my mother's father and my father's father were both bakers when they were in Europe, and even though they didn't know each other and they lived in different countries. So they were both bakers, and both of my grandmothers were, I believe they stayed at home. Most women didn't work at that point in Russia.
Okay.
And my father's mother had six children, but the first child was born in Russia, in Hungary.
hmm Um, was anyone in the family directly affected by the Holocaust in Europe or by programs in Russia, Poland, or anywhere else? Can you tell
Yes,
me about it?
they were all affected by the pogroms, Pogram. It's a little
hmm
different, and I know it's hard to say, but they all were affected by that because there was so much prejudice against Jews at the time. In terms of the Holocaust, by the time my parents and grandparents were all in this country by the time of the Holocaust, but my father's family still had many cousins that were in um, Russia and Austria and Hungary, and there were family circle meetings where they would collect money and discuss ways to get these cousins out of Europe at the time. Um, that's something that at another time we can find. One of our relatives has the minutes from those meetings, which is quite an artifact. Um, from the meetings of trying to get our family out. Some got out and some were killed in the concentration camps.
Mhm. Okay. Can you tell me anything about your family? So your family immigrated to United States, right?
Yes.
So can you tell me anything about your family's immigration to the United States? Like who came over and about when?
Yeah. They all came over, both sets of my grandparents came over in the early 1900s. So I would say probably maybe between the late 1800s, like 1895, and maybe 1905 is,
Mhm.
or maybe a little later, maybe like 1910
Got
is
it.
when they came over.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Uh, do you know where they and like they settled? Like where they?
Yeah, they all came through New York and they all settled in New York. No, my mother's family settled in New York in Brooklyn, and my father's family settled in New Jersey in Newark.
Got it. Okay. Now time for the artifact.
Okay.
Um, what is the artifact? Can you tell me about it?
Okay. I want to show you this book was it says Sabbath services, and it was a bar mitzvah Bible that was given to, I believe, my Uncle Mac, who was my father's oldest brother.
Hmm.
Um, that's one thing that I've preserved. This book came from here. This is called The Code of Jewish Law, and it's a very interesting book. It's written in English, and it tells it answers many questions about customs in the Jewish faith. And then we have the picture that I have back here that you can
Hmm.
see over here. And that picture was actually taken of my grandmother, Grandma Lena, who was your great great grandmother when she first came to the United States. She was a beautiful woman when she came here.
Hmm.
That's what I have now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm in possession of now. And we
Okay.
do have family circle minutes that are not in my possession. They're in, I believe, Cousin Donna's house.
Hmm. Do you know how old those artifacts are?
Oh, I also have this. This was a plate that I believe came from Russia.
Got
So this is probably, uh, I would say this is probably about 100 years old.
it.
The photograph, the picture, has been restored. It was very, very decrepit. It was restored by a good friend. And that is probably, I would say, about 130 years old.
Wow.
The This book, The Code of Jewish Law, is not that old. This is probably about 50 or 60 years old.
Hmm.
But this book has a date in it. This book, the date is um, May 28th, 1927. That's
Wow.
how I can figure out that it was my uncle's bar mitzvah.
Hmm. Got it. Okay. Um, Now I would like to ask you a few questions about your life growing up. Where'd you grow up and who who lived with you growing up?
I grew up in Brooklyn,
Hmm.
um, and uh, first I lived near a big park called the Lincoln Terrace Park. So if anybody's listening that knows Brooklyn, they would know the Lincoln Terrace Park, and was right near the Brooklyn Public Library, where when I was young, my mother used to walk me there. And then we moved to Manhattan Beach, where I lived till I went off to college. I lived with my mother and my father and my sister, who's your Aunt Paula,
Mm-hmm.
and my grandma Lena, who we called Grandma Kaminer, who was my mother's mother. She lived with us too.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Um, um, what was like life, or what was life like? Tell me something about school life, like your favorite teacher, your favorite subject.
Oh, well, when I moved to where I remember best, which is, the second place I lived, I went to a small school. There were only two grades, two classes in each grade. But then I went to junior high, and then I went to Lincoln High School. And I loved Lincoln High School. I had a good time there. I liked writing, and I belonged to the newspaper there. And I think my favorite subjects there were probably English
Got it.
and history.
Mm-hmm. Um, what did you do in your childhood for fun?
Oh my goodness. Well, we used to get together, my friends, we were big groups of friends, and we would get together. We took buses everywhere. Nobody had cars. So we would go to the movies, or there was a big street that was a bus ride away called King's Highway. And we used to go to King's Highway and walk around the stores and go to the movies and things like that. But that's when I was a teenager. When I was younger, we used to play a lot in the street. We would play stickball in the street, which is kind of like a Brooklyn version of baseball or softball. And uh, we just hung out a lot.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Um, when you're a teacher, when you're a teenager, did you have a bar or did you have a bat mitzvah?
No, I didn't,
And
unfortunately. It was a time when it wasn't typical for girls to have bat mitzvahs.
got it. Uh, what was your most meaningful, or what was most meaningful to you about? Oh wait, never mind. Um, um, now I would like you to pick your favorite Jewish holiday and describe how you and your family celebrated it when you were a child.
Oh, that's an easy one. My favorite holiday was Hanukkah. And the reason it was my favorite holiday was because the way we celebrated it. My mom's family, and they all lived in Brooklyn too. We had big Hanukkah parties every year where we would go to a to the uh to the like recreation room in one of the synagogues, and all the cousins were together. And we didn't do that all year long where everybody was together like that. So that was really my favorite holiday.
Hmm. Okay. Um, what were your uh Jewish traditions like as a child, or like special foods you'd make, or like
Well, my mom would make latkes, and we liked them so much that we'd make her make them when it wasn't just Hanukkah. And Friday nights, we would sometimes celebrate Shabbat, but even when we didn't, we would always have like roast chicken and like Friday night dinner. Um,
uh,
okay.
did anyone in your family serve in the military?
Yes, my father was in the Navy during World War II. He
In
served, he served in the Pacific.
God,
He
in
was
like
on a ship
in
in the Pacific.
in America, like American Navy?
Oh yeah, remember he was born in the United States.
Oh, God.
He was in the U.S. Navy.
Hmm.
It was right before I was born, but after Aunt Paula was born.
Got it. Um, couple more questions. How did you meet like my grandpa, like Poppy? How did you?
Poppy? Well, after high school, I went to nursing school. I went to Beth Israel Nursing School, which was in Manhattan. And after I graduated, um, one of my jobs early on was in a program. Actually, it was a program that treated alcohol and drug addiction. And Poppy was a counselor in the same program. So we met working together.
Got it. Um, oh yeah, what did you do to make a living in your adult life?
I spent my whole career as a nurse. I worked from the time I graduated from nursing school until I retired, a couple of years right before you were born. Well, it was a couple of years before you were born,
Mm-hmm.
like like 2 years, about.
And like last question or two. Um, Now we're gonna wrap up with one more question. What advice do you have for future generations like me?
Well, since you're doing this for, your Hebrew education, your Jewish education, I would say number one, be understand our history as Jews. That's really important. I think that it's been forgotten along the way, and it's really important to understand where we came from, our very, very long history. And I'm really, really, really glad that you're studying it. So that's one thing. I'm very proud of you for that because I know you didn't have to do it. And it it's it's important, and I just want you to know how proud I am of you because it's a lot of work. Um, and the other thing is be happy, follow your dreams, and be a good person, and be good to yourself, but be good to the people around you, and just be happy, follow a career that's not necessarily going to give you a lot of money or a lot of power, but something that's going to give you passion and something you love. And that I was lucky to have. I was very lucky to be a nurse and love what I did. And I want that for you and for all my grandchildren.
Okay. Thank you for doing this interview.
Oh, thank you, honey. I love you.
Love you.